Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm on behalf of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and thanks as ever for joining me for a conversation, a deliberation, provocation, procrastination. What's the other one I'm going to say? Boy, I don't know. Anyways, welcome. Listen, we're 3 days out, I think, maybe 4 days since the end of the third round of the West Indies domestic championship, and it's a bit of a lull period in West Indies cricket. One of those rare moments in West Indies cricket where nothing really is going on. No madness has broken in the news. There's no games going on. None of the age group sides are playing. The next engagement in West Indies cricket will be next week when we see the start of the women's domestic championship, domestic tournaments, T20 Blaze and Super 50, respectively. And we'll try to do some content on that. I'll try and see if I can get some of the players on the show, etc., etc. Wait to see what squads are announced and so on and so forth. Obviously, Hayley Matthews will not be playing because she's in the women's IPL. But the large majority of, if not all of the rest of the West Indian players, both seniors down to the youngsters, should be expected to feature for their respective nations. That notwithstanding, before we get into that and before we do any content around that, I kind of just wanted to reflect on the first 3 rounds of the West Indies Championship and make up, or pick rather, the best 11 players so far. And within that, what I mean is, if the selectors, so effectively Andre Coley and Desmond Haynes and whoever else may be part of the new selection team, were to pick a West Indies A team right here, right now, who is worthy of a pick? So I've gone through all of the performances across the first 3 rounds, and I've tried to pick what I think would be the best West Indies A team for when South Africa A come in the summer. Now, before people say to me, what do you mean when South Africa A come in the summer? If you haven't listened to our episode with Miles Bascombe, Cricket West Indies Director of Cricket, he announced on that show that South Africa will be doing a reciprocal tour. Obviously, before the Australia series, West Indies A went to South Africa to play their A team, which was effectively the side that went and played New Zealand in a test series. And South Africa the senior approaches come to play West Indies in August for a test series. But at the same time, South Africa will be bringing an A side to play a West Indies A in parallel with that test tour. So like I say, I looked at the first 3 rounds of the competition, and to be fair to the domestic players, the competition has got better round by round. And I think testament to that fact is in the third round of the competition just gone, every single game went to the final day. And I think that's testament to the level of competitive cricket that was on show. Doesn't necessarily mean it was great cricket. Doesn't necessarily mean that everybody was outstanding, but competitive cricket was being played. And we saw some scores over 300. We saw more individual centuries. We saw some fourfers, fivers, etc. So that's encouraging. It's still not top class cricket, but it's encouraging. Like I always say in West Indies cricket, we want to see incremental development, incremental improvements. So anyways, without further ado, here's my best 11 of the tournament thus far. I just want to say, disclaimer, when I picked the side, that I insisted that whoever played number 6 had to be an all-rounder, and I insisted that my bowling attack had to be 1 spinner and 3 pacers. The all-rounder at number 6 was just dependent on who I thought was the best all-rounder, whether seamer or spinner or whatever it might be. So, first things first, my openers. My openers for the West Indies, potential West Indies A team versus South Africa A, if it was picked purely based off what happens in our domestic championship. I've got Machel Louis from the Leeward Isles and Jeremy Solizano as my openers. So Louis, 343 runs thus far, top run scorer in the competition at 57 apiece. That's a no-brainer. He's a top run scorer in the competition. I shouldn't have to explain that. And then Solizano, in the last video for round 3, when I did the review of the round, I said that we should be keeping more tabs on Solizano. Obviously, Solizano was previously picked for the West Indies senior men's side under Roger Harper, when Roger Harper was the senior selector, alongside Miles Bascom, in fact. Solizano, 215 runs thus far in the competition. He's only batted 3 times at 72 apiece. So that, to me, would be Jeremy Solizano's reintroduction back into the senior fold by giving him some recognised A-team cricket. He's played for West Indies A before. That would be nothing new to him. But for me, it would be about rewarding someone who had been on the cusp of the senior side, 2.5 years ago, and showing him that you're willing to invest in him again. At number 3, I've got Jide Gooley. Now, Gooley, I'm willing to accept. You could throw at me because I often throw this at other people. I'm willing to accept that people would say, "Oh, Mash, come on, that's just recency bias." Gooley scored 223 runs at 45 apiece. He's currently the 7th highest run scorer in the competition. And the reason why I wanted to reward him, he's got a century in the competition so far and a 50. And to me, that's a level of consistency that only really the people above him have shown, the other 6 batters above him have shown. And I think for me, Gooley's pick is about recognizing that 6-7 years ago, in fact, it's a long time now, 8 years ago, when the under-19 team won the World Cup with Hetmeyer and Alzari Joseph and Chamar Holder and Casey Carty and Shamar Springer, all of them, man, right? Ryan John was in that team as well. It's about recognizing that for a West Indian player, for lots of them, they only come of age once they start to get to 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Usually because by that time, they've only started to play the volume of cricket that they should have been playing at the age of 22, 23, 24. Now, Gooley has had such a stop-start career for Trinidad and Tobago Red Force. Part of that's his fault. And a lot of that is probably the Red Force administration and selectors in terms of just not investing in him, right? Anyway, Gooley has had his chances this year. He's bagged 223 runs at 45. And I think that's worthy of rewarding him and saying, come through to the A side. Let's see what you can do. In brackets, next to Gooley, I wrote Casey Carty. Now, some of you might say, Mash, Casey Carty has only just turned up. Carty has played in 2 of the matches thus far in the competition, 4 innings. He scored 111 runs at 28 apiece with 150. Now, of course, those numbers are nothing to write home about. But the reason I put Casey Carty in brackets is, and this is why it's important when you're selecting a side to not just look at, because it's easy, right? Like any other dunce, I could have just looked at the top run scorers, looked at the top wicket takers and gone, you. That's not how you pick a side, right? You've also got to think about who are you investing in? So it's not as simple as who are the top 10 run scorers. It's about who are you investing in the future. They have invested in Casey Carty in ODI cricket. He has a central West Indies contract. He has a style of battership which suggests he should be better suited for red ball cricket. So invest in him, yes? So I've put in brackets, Casey Carty should be in a West Indies A squad to give him more opportunities in red ball cricket, to see that when an opportunity presents itself in the West Indies top to middle order, which it surely will, because none of those players are truly consistent, we already would have given Carty some chances to show us what he can do. So I've put Casey Carty in brackets at number 3 alongside Jide Gooley. Number 4, Kevin Wickham. Wickham, I think, let me just double check, is the he's the third. He's the 3rd highest run scorer in the competition thus far. Technically, on average, he might be the highest run scorer in terms of innings actually faced, but he's batted 5 times, scored 313 runs at an average of 63. He's scored 102 50s. Only one other player has matched that in terms of milestone innings, and that's 36-year-old Jonathan Carter. We obviously are not going to be calling up 36-year-old Jonathan Carter to a West Indies A side, and Wickham's the only other person who's got milestones that match Carter. So it's a no-brainer. Obviously, Kevin may well be going to Ireland, and I would take him to Ireland as part of the West Indies Academy to play that series against the Ireland emerging players. But I would give Kevin Wickham a West Indies A call up as well to play South Africa A. In brackets next to Kevin Wickham, I've put Kevlon Anderson. Now, again, that might surprise people, right? So Kevlon Anderson has had a subpar time of it thus far in the competition. He's batted 4 times for Guyana, scored 98 runs at an average of 25, no centuries, no 50s. But why have I got Kevlon Anderson's name written down? Because they've already started investing in Kevlon. People may have forgotten that Kevlon Anderson was supposed to go to South Africa in November last year to play that A series, but there was visa complications. Just because Kevlon has struggled thus far in the first 3 rounds of the domestic championship doesn't mean you suddenly turn around and go, well, boy, Kevlon, that means you can't play for West Indies A anymore. You have to invest in the youth, man. So you recognize sometimes that some people underachieve, kind of very similar to Casey Carty underachieved in Super 50 prior to the West Indies ODI series versus England. They didn't drop him. They selected him said same way, right? And they said, we've made a decision to invest in the youth, man. So we're going to select him. We're going to keep on selecting him. That's what I think you have to do with Kevlon Anderson as well. So in brackets next to Wickham, I put Kevlon Anderson. Number 5, I put Sunil Ambris. That should need no explanation. Sunil Ambris has looked very classy thus far in the competition, very aggressive in his strike rate. I think he's got the best strike rate in this year's competition in terms of top serious run scorers. He's going at 88 in his innings. 3 innings. He's only batted 3 times, 237 runs at 79 apiece, 100, 150. Like I said in the previous video, Sunil's only 30 years old. He's only 30 years old, and yet still some appear to have written his career off. Last played a test match for West Indies 6 years ago when he was 24. Last played an ODI for the West Indies 3.5 years ago when he was 26, 27. And somehow we've written him off. No. Sunil Ambris come through to the West Indies A side. He should be playing 18 cricket versus South Africa A in the summer. Then, this was my most difficult pick. When I got to position number 6, I was like, hold on a minute. What all-rounder has done anything? And when I say all-rounder, I don't mean a bowler who has surprised everyone by making lots of runs. And I don't mean a batter who has surprised everyone by taking a few wickets. I mean someone who you genuinely look at them and go, your skill set is that of an all-rounder. You are a legit all-rounder. Now, before anybody says to me, Kevin Sinclair, I haven't included Kevin Sinclair because Kevin Sinclair has gone past West Indies A level. That's not his level anymore. He is now a West Indies senior international. So Sinclair doesn't come into the conversation. So after looking, I decided that the number 6 position should go to Shamar Springer. Also, like I said earlier on, from that 2016 Under-19 World Cup team. Again, somebody who, based on his skill set at 19 years old, should have played for the West Indies by now. But again, he's approaching 27 years old now, might already be 27. It's taken 7 to 8 years for Shamar Springer to find his true form and his true self, and what looks like he might be approaching a consistent level of cricket. Natural things in West Indies' slow development of players, right? So I've got Shamar Springer. Thus far in the competition, he scored 103 runs at 34 apiece, which again, people say to me, Mash, that's nothing to write home about. He's only batted 3 times because he's playing in the Wimbledon Islands team who have been very, very successful, right? The Wimbledon Islands have won every single game. They haven't had to bat a lot. Springer's only had to bat 3 times. I think his batting is good enough to bat in, well, maybe it might be a stretch to say he's a number 6, but that's where I'm putting him, right? So Shamar Springer, 103 runs at 34 apiece. He's got 150 in the tournament so far. And then with the ball, Shamar Springer has got 14 wickets at 18 apiece. So I've got Shamar as my all-rounder at number 6. In brackets, I put Joshua James, the big guy out of Tobago, right? I got lots of stocks in Joshua James, but I put him in brackets, and I won't talk too much about him because I expect Joshua James to go to Ireland with the West Indies Academy team. But I've put him in brackets because he's one to think about for the future. Number 7, wicketkeeper, Jamar Hamilton. Let me say that again. Wicketkeeper, number 7, Jamar Hamilton. I know that there are going to be people who heard me say that and go, what on earth are you talking about? There's going to be 2 reasons why people will disagree with me. First, they'll say, what about Romain Morrison, who's been making runs for Jamaica this year, the 28-year-old from Jamaica? And yes, Romain Morrison has been Jamaica's, well, apart from Chadwick Walton, has been Jamaica's best bat this year, right? 223 runs at 56 apiece, 250s. But that's really and truly, speak to people in Jamaica, and they'll tell you that's come as a surprise to them. This has been Romain Morrison's first real good season, I'd say. Don't get me wrong, he's had average seasons before, but this will be his first real good season. I'm not rewarding Romain Morrison for finally having a good season. I'm rewarding Jamar Hamilton for being consistent in domestic cricket. Thus far, he's scored 210 runs at 35 apiece with 250s. I said it in previous videos, in some of our most recent videos. Why does Jamar Hamilton get overlooked so often? He is clearly the best glove man in the region. He is only 33 years old. That is no age to write a cricketer off. Yes, some of you will say, boy, Mash, but you can't pick a 33-year-old for West Indies A side because how much time does he really have left at the international level? Listen, man are playing top-tier international cricket until 37 years old. Jamar Hamilton can rightly say, if Josh De Silva got injured, Jamar Hamilton should rightly be saying, well, hold on, my volume of runs, both across 50 overs and red ball cricket in the last however many years, is consistent. I should get a look in. So I'm giving him I'm rewarding him with an 18 place, because to me, Jamar Hamilton should be Joshua De Silva's backup. It shouldn't be Tevin Imlach. Imlach hasn't got the quantity of runs and consistency that I want to see to justify his position as Josh's backup. I wouldn't be turning my back on Jamar Hamilton. I know that one's going to cause some controversy, and people say, nah, we were with you, Mash, until you mentioned Jamar Hamilton. But let me give flowers to Jamar Hamilton. In brackets, I wrote Jewel Andrew. Now, obviously, Jewel Andrew, 17-year-old sensation. People will say, yeah, bring through the youth man. Jewel Andrew is nowhere near ready to be considered for any kind of serious senior cricket for West Indies. But I'm not against him playing some 18 cricket later this year, because I think you have to invest in the youth, right? Jewel Andrew should be going on that tour as part of the West Indies Academy side to go to Ireland. I know Bowen Tuckett is the kind of incumbent academy wicketkeeper, but Jewel Andrew should be getting experience. Now, for me, experience means traveling with a squad abroad. It also means being with an A-team squad as part of just the experience of being in camp. It won't hurt him. So in brackets, I just put Jewel Andrew for experience purposes. My wicket taker, my spinner that I've picked as my attacking spinner, I ummed and ahed about this. Some will say Ashmead Ned, some will call Rakeem Cornwall or Jamel Warrican, etc. I didn't call Warrican, I didn't call Cornwall. And the reason why is because those two have proved themselves at 18 level. They don't need to play 18 cricket. They've proved themselves at this level before. It's actually a backward step to select them for the 18, because what do they have to prove, right? Then I thought about Brian Charles, who somehow, which no one has ever explained, has been leapfrogged by several players. Go back about 2 years ago, and Brian Charles was seemingly the next spinner off the rank to play for West Indies. And Bearman have just passed him with no explanation as to how that happened. And it wasn't like Brian Charles wasn't taking wickets at the A-team level. And it wasn't like he wasn't taking wickets in domestic cricket. Somehow he just got bypassed without any real reason. Again, Brian Charles is doing what he often does. Let me see if I can find him. He's played 3 matches thus far, and he's taken 8 wickets at 22 apiece. But that's what Brian Charles does. But no one ever really talks about him in the context of, oh yeah, he should be given a chance. In the end, I decided that my spinner would be Joshua Bishop. Not just because Joshua Bishop has made runs, and Joshua Bishop hasn't even been the best spinning bowler in the competition. Ashmead Ned has outbowled him for the West Indies Academy. Brian Charles has outbowled him. Versamy Permol has outbowled him. Rakeen Cornwall has outbowled him. So that Jermel Warrican has significantly outbowled him. So there's several spinners. Kari Pierre has outbowled him. There's several. Chaim Holder has outbowled him. There's several spinners who have outbowled Joshua Bishop in this year's tournament. But the reason why I picked Joshua Bishop is because he's 23 years old. I think he's mashed up West Indies Academy level. He's already shown that he's above that level now. So for me, Bishop was a youth man investment pick. I already know what Jamel Warrican can do. I already know what Cornwall can do. I know what Permol can do. Maybe there's an argument to say Chaim Holder should get a play in a West Indies A side. There's an argument to say Brian Charles should get a play, but I've gone for Bishop because I'm recognizing that Bishop is ready to graduate out of the West Indies Academy, and I want to reward him with an 18 spot to see how he adapts to the next level. I'm sure that one will cause some controversy. He also can bat, which probably also may have swayed it as well. And then my 3 seamers, which I think are no-brainers. Jeremiah Louis, 17 wickets at 15 thus far. He's played West Indies 18 cricket before, but has had fallen down the pecking order, so I'm bringing him back in. Ryan John, 15 wickets at 17. He was part of that West Indies under-19 World Cup winning side in 2016. Time for him to be given a go. And then Anderson Phillip, 13 wickets at 14. Anderson Phillip, another one. This time last year, or maybe not this time last year, maybe a year and a bit ago, we were saying, right, Jayden Seales and Anderson Phillip, they're the next 2 quicks coming off the ranks. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about Shamar Joseph, and no one's really mentioning Jayden Seales or Anderson Phillip. And people forget that Anderson Phillip had made his Test debut. Let me go find him. Anderson Phillip had made, was it against Bangladesh, I want to say? Or did he make it against Australia? But he bowled really well against Bangladesh when he played Test cricket there. So, and Anderson Phillip has played 2. Let me just make sure. 1 second, people. Yeah. So Anderson Phillip debuted against Bangladesh at home, then played Australia about a year and a bit ago and broke down. If people may have forgotten that, right? So Anderson Phillip has played 2 Test matches and taken 3 wickets in his 2 Test matches. Now, obviously, the Australia one. Let me just people. I want to just make sure I've got my stats right. So he debuted against Bangladesh and he took 2 for 30 on debut against Bangladesh in the first innings. Second innings, none for 23. And that was his first Test match. His second Test match was then against Australia. Obviously, he got licked down and then he got injured, right? But my point being that Anderson Phillip has played 29 first-class matches. How old is he now? 27 years old. Of course, he's only played 29 at the age of 27. He's played 29 first-class matches and he's taken 98 wickets at 23, right? I just feel that we were saying that Anderson was the next one coming through. So he's come back after injury, after that Australia thing where he broke down. He's come back to the domestic scene. He's looking like his old self again. He's laying down wickets right, left, and centre. Let's bring him back into the fold and let's see where his game is at the next level, just underneath Test cricket again. So it makes sense to pick an Anderson Phillip. I didn't say Jayden Seales, but assuming we go into that South Africa Test series and England obviously away with a bowling attack of Roach, Joseph, both Josephs, sorry. So Roach, Alzari, Shamar Joseph. Obviously, Jason Holder will come back in and then a spinner, right? That's probably your bowling attack. So there's no spot at the moment for Jayden Seales, whether he can continue bowling well in this domestic championship or not. There's no obvious spot for Jayden Seales to come back into the side yet. So in brackets, I've also written down, if by South Africa at home, if we played well in England and we lost, which we will do, but let's say we played well, and that bowling attack bowls well in England, then that's the same bowling attack that's going to bowl at home versus South Africa, right? So I put Jaden Seals in brackets because I'm like, if he's not in the West Indies squad by South Africa at home, we should be making sure he plays some 18 cricket, because Jaden Seals is actually our next best bowler and was our star boy until he got injured. So as part of our investment in him, he should be playing cricket at all times, right? To help his rehabilitation to get back into the test setup, because he is the natural successor when Kamar Roach steps aside, as long as, I'm assuming, we keep both Alzari Joseph and Shamar Joseph around the setup. So in that context, Jaden Seals should obviously be part of the West Indies A team, waiting for a spot to open up again and getting some more miles back in his legs. Listen, people, I know I haven't mentioned people like Kavem Hodge, Kevin Sinclair, certain people that you may have been expecting me to mention. That's because I now consider them West Indies senior players. And for me, they're going to be playing versus England. They're going to be on tour in England. They're going to be playing at home versus South Africa. So why would you pick them in a West Indies A team? So that's why certain people will be missing. Walton, Chadwick Walton, Jonathan Carter, I'm not picking them because they're too old. And they are literally too old. There's nothing to be gained by picking a 38-year-old and a 36-year-old in a West Indies A side, not when you're thinking about the future and next developmental steps. So that's why certain people are missing in that sense. Listen, as ever, I don't purport to have all the answers. All I can ever do is give you my rationale. I urge you, go and look at the performances thus far. Go and look at, it's light shining on me, man. Go and look at the performances thus far. Go and look at the run makers, the wicket takers. But then when you make your 11, think about the balance and composition of a side, whilst also thinking about developmental structures and taking players on a journey. It's never as simple as pick the 5 best batters in order of runs scored and pick the 5 best bowlers in order of wickets taken. Sometimes you've got to think bigger than that. This now be Machel St. Patrick here, one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. You can find the Caribbean Cricket Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Carib Cricket. Obviously, going to Google, just put Caribbean Cricket Podcast and our website will come up. Everything will come up. Obviously, you're watching this on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. All of that helps the channel keep growing. And look out for some content coming your way. I've been having some conversations with some media guys, and we may finally be getting into short form content. Some of you have always said to me, Mash, you never do shorts, and on your Instagram, your reels aren't done properly, and you don't have TikTok and all of that. I've been in negotiations, and maybe this will be the video where you start to see some professional short form content coming out from the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. So do look out for that as well as we try and expand what we do. And I promise that in 2024, we try and get better at all aspects of this media platform. So look out for all of that. As ever, if you want to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. Any little bit helps. It all helps keep the channel on the road. And that short form content I'm talking about, that comes from the patrons. That patron money, people often think that, did you take that and pay yourselves? No. Whatever patron money we get in, we use it to try and enhance the quality of what we're doing, whether that be equipment or whether that's helping to pay people to make sure that our output of stuff is slightly more professional, slightly better than how it was the year before, and so on and so forth. So look out for some content coming, people. Stay locked in as ever. Peace. We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming. Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.